I was really excited for the North Dakota 2015 turkey season to start because I drew a tag in the unit right next to my house. So that meant that I could go out in the evenings and scout and try and find these birds. What we did right away is we went and we put out the clam ground blind and got everything set up, and then the next week or two was spent on trying to locate where these birds were roosting and where they were staying during the day. We put a couple of trail cameras up right next to the blind once we set it up about 2 weeks before the season started, and I was hoping I could get pictures daily and kind of put a pattern on these birds, what time they were coming in, but they were really sporadic. I mean, we had the camera out for 2 weeks but only had 3 different days of turkey pictures. About 3 days before season, I was driving after work and I saw this big group of turkeys. They were probably only 300 or 400 yards away from my blind, but they were on the opposite side of the river. It was still pretty early in the season and all these turkeys were grouped up, so I was a little bit worried that they were going to stay in this giant group and we're only going to come by every few days. But about 3 or 4 days before season, I started seeing this group of about 10 hanging out pretty religiously in this little island right on the other side of where I had my blind. I was watching these turkeys for the 3 days before season, and they were basically coming and roosting in this exact same spot, which was only about 150 yards away from my blind. So I thought that's perfect. They're plenty close. I can just call on them in the morning and hopefully they'll pitch down and come to my side of the river. As you can see from some of the scouting footage, we didn't have a lot of trouble finding these birds, but the problem was they were on the other side of the river. So they were roosting on the other side of the river, they were hanging out most of the day on the other side of the river, so I was a little bit worried if I could pull them over to our side and get a shot at them. So the night before, I was trying to find these turkeys where they were roosting, and they ended up not being in the same spot. It was still the same group of about 10 to 15 turkeys, but they were actually on my side of the river, but they were probably 400 yards away from where my blind was. I was a little bit leery about that, but I figured if I can call pretty loud in the morning, then I should be able to get them to gobble back and know that I'm here, and hopefully my calling is good enough that I can bring them in. Opening morning came and I got into the blind plenty early and started calling right away. Started calling quiet first and then started calling progressively louder until I finally heard a couple of gobbles back, so I knew that they were close enough that they could hear me. It was pretty quiet for that first half an hour or so. I would call every once in a while and the birds would gobble back, so I knew they were still in the area, but I didn't think they'd flown down yet. And then to the right of me, I see this hen go flying up into a tree about 75 yards away from me across the river. So she sat there for a good 10 minutes or so, and I started calling and she started responding back to me. So once I started talking back and forth with this hen, that really got all those other turkeys fired up. I kept calling back and forth with this hen, and then all of a sudden I heard a loud gobble, probably only 100 yards away. It was really nerve-wracking when they were all behind my blind, because I could hear them, clucking and making all their turkey sounds, and two of them were even fighting with each other. I could hear wings flapping and them hitting against each other, and that really got my nerves racing. After they were hanging out behind the blind for a few minutes, I finally started calling really quietly to kind of coax them back into my decoy spread, and that got two of them excited. Once the turkeys started coming back into my decoys, I wish I could have positioned the camera a little better so I could get the whole thing on footage. But I had two of them at about 5 yards away, full strut looking into my blind. So I had to peek down, and there was just no way that I could move the camera and get it in position. So I just sat back, waited for them to get out in front of the blind, and then position the camera and get my bow ready so I could get a shot. Was an incredible morning. I'm not sure how much of that I got on camera. Hopefully I got the shot, but those birds came right in. I had a hen across the river that I saw roosted. It was just hanging out for a while, and
6 yards. I had to sit low in the blind to make sure that they wouldn't be able to see me. So. That was awesome. Last night I went out and I figured out where they were roosting, and it was about 300-400 yards away from here. So I thought, it might be a little bit far away to try and bring them in, but I'm gonna try anyways. And I started calling and they were responsive right away. And then I had that other hen join in, and then it was just, they came right in after that.
So we've been tracking this turkey for about 200 yards now, and while he was going away, I could see the arrow was still in him, and it looked like he was hit pretty good. So I'm actually kind of surprised he got this far, but these turkeys are tough birds, so we're just going to keep following the blood trail, and hopefully we can find him here shortly.
Birds got quiet today.
So here's my arrow. You can see that it's bloody all the way to the fletching, so that's a good sign. Made it all the way through the bird, so shouldn't be too much longer. Hopefully we find him. Here he is, beautiful North Dakota Tom. Shot him opening morning. I roosted these birds last night and they were about 400 yards away, and I started calling right away in the morning, and there was another hen right across the river really close to me that started chiming in too, and that got all these birds just fired up. It took a little while for them to come, maybe about an hour, but they came right in, came to the decoy spread, and I put a good shot on this one, so really thankful. It was a great hunt.